I'm Ingrid McTaggart, the Communications Officer for the Diocese of Toowoomba. Our diocese is nearly 500,000 square kilometres, and the shepherd for this vast diocese is Bishop Robert McGuckin. Let's go and have a chat and find out the man behind our diocese. Thanks, Bishop Robert, for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, Bishop Robert.
I think most people realise I grew up in Sydney and very much a Sydney person as my childhood and early years. And I grew up in the parish of Enmore as a child, and we were involved very much with the church there. I was an altar server at a fairly young age, and later on, member of the St. Vincent de Paul Society. And it became somewhat of a multicultural area, and we had, very fortunate in the 50s, we had some wonderful Greek neighbours next door, and they introduced us to Greek culture and very much they become part of our family, and we become very much part of their family too.
How many siblings do you have?
Well, I really grew up with a sister and two brothers. The first child in the family was killed in a car accident when he was 1 year old, so I never ever knew him at all. So this made my mother, I think, very nervous within driving within cars and things like that, which is understandable. But yeah, we were, I think, a fairly happy family. I think we were involved. I remember as a kid, one of the things we used to do was, you'd be off to get on a tram and you'd be off to Manly or to Coogee. You'd get in the car, and my grandparents lived up at the Central Coast, and I often go on holidays there, and then I had an aunt and uncle on a farm, so I grew up sort of also getting out riding horses, shooting rabbits. And
Right. Sounds like a very rowdy time.
Perhaps it was a wonderful time, and I think we were all involved in many activities. We were involved, we'd be out riding bicycles around the place. And after I left school, then I went to work in banking. I didn't go straight to the seminary. I went off to work in banking, and I did that for several years before I really thought more fully about priesthood and going to the seminary.
Oh, fantastic. So it's not just about being in the group when you're young, it's carrying those friendships forward into your adult life.
I think so. I think you become, I think as priest too, you become part of many families, and I think that's been a very rewarding thing for me anyhow, that you're able to walk with people, and great friendships and joys and sadness of life that you're able to share with other people.
Right. You mentioned that you worked in banking before you entered the priesthood. Was that a career that you thought you might pursue at some stage? Or?
It was one of those things that you start out with, and you involved first with a bit of general banking, and then I was involved in the more specialised banking of estate law, and then later on in conveyancing for about 5 years, and perhaps then thinking of doing maybe more arts law at university at that stage of the game.
So what do you think changed your mind about pursuing a standard, normal life, a career, and sort of what tapped you on the shoulder? And
well, I suppose I'd been involved with church, with being an altar server, then later with St. Vincent de Paul Society and youth group. And I think it was when one of my friends in the youth group went off to the seminary. I think that made me think, well, maybe people can go at a later stage, whereas normally I think people would normally go to the seminary as soon as they left school. So that made me thinking about it. So I sort of made inquiries and made some applications at that point of time. And Cardinal Gilroy was happy to accept me as a student for the Archdiocese of Sydney. And I went into the seminary at that stage of the game.
So how did faith and the Catholic Church sort of feature in your childhood? Do you remember?
Oh, well, it was certainly part of our life. I mean, we were at Mass every Sunday, and I think also as an altar server, you'd also, every few weeks, you'd be rostered for weekday Masses too. So you were involved with the church there. I was also, we used to help out in the local presbytery when the priest mightn't be there. We'd go and answer the phones there. We'd go and sell bingo housey tickets of a Friday night and get covered in smoke and have to hang your clothes out. But no, it was very much part of our existence really. And then later on youth group we were involved. We were tied up with the church. It wasn't something that wasn't part of our life really.
Did you ever think, I'd like to be a bishop one day? Or was that something that just sort of presented itself out of the blue?
I don't think you
don't start off being a priest wanting to be a bishop.
I did ask this question recently at a school, a primary school, and I said, how many people wanted to be a priest? And I think there were about 11 people put their hand up, and I said, how many people want to be a bishop? And about 40 people put their hands up. So, but whatever of that. No, I think really, I think in priesthood, the call is to ministry, to service, and you really don't know what the path is. And you don't pick this yourself. It's something that you're called to. And I was called to go and work in the tribunal. I was called in to do postgraduate studies. Then bishops ask you to take on a certain role. So I was Vicar General for some years in Parramatta. And then similarly, you don't ask to do those things, they're put upon you. And similarly, the question about becoming a bishop, it's something that you don't apply for, that somebody taps you on the shoulder and says that the Holy Father wishes you to become a bishop in a certain place. And similarly, you've never asked for these things, but I think ministry is very much answering the call that is put before you.
Your motto is abide in my love, which in Latin, you'll have to help me with the pronunciation.
Yeah, well, the English I've used has been remain in my love, which comes out of that Gospel of St. John, chapter 15, which talks about being called by the Lord, not as servants, but as friends, and indeed then to call to share that love with other people. But to do that, you firstly have to be grounded with, and it's the mission of Jesus that we're called to exercise. To do that, then it's not yourself. You're called to remain in the love of the Lord, and manete in deletione mea, remain in the delight of the Lord, in the love of the Lord. And I think that's important for all of us. And I thought that was an appropriate, as a bishop, that you're not exercising this yourself and your skills that you might have, but it's always ought be flowing through the Spirit of the Lord, which is given to you. And so that's been, I think it's important for me, and I suppose people might think I bash them over the head with this, but I think Pope Francis always calls us, we need to be grounded in what we're doing. Otherwise, you could become just a social worker or a theologian without any basis of faith, or a lawyer who really is just exercising some role rather than exercising a ministry and sharing in the mission of Jesus.
What was the change you noticed between you at the start and you as you approached your priesthood?
Well, it was firstly we went to Springwood, and it was almost like going to a boarding school, or could I say almost like I won't say a prison, but it was very much that you were for somebody who had been working and been involved there, you really, it was like a step back in the past in a way, because you were there and you just couldn't come and go as you pleased, and you'd have to ask permission for things, and you also were there for maybe 4 or 5 months before you'd go home. You only have visiting days once every, couple of months type of thing. I think prisoners get a little bit more access to people, and I'd have to say the food situation in the seminary in those first couple of years was not the best. And I compare today how they are, and I think it's only right that things have changed. But there was I found a change from that first 3 years when we were in Springwood. It was more like in somewhat a bit of a closed shop to more the openness when we moved to Manly, there was a different rector. I mean, it was a more open seminary. Yes, you had to attend classes and things like that, but you didn't have to ask permission to wander down to the beach, and from my room you could look out the surf there. It's a little bit distracting in a way, the seminary in Manly, but so there was a more openness, and I think more realistic, because I was not going to be ordained to be a monk somewhere other. I was being ordained priesthood to be in a parish with people, and I think in Manly there was much more involvement with, let's say, the real world and where people are at. The seminary formation today is most probably better, I think, keyed up to help people in their processes of formation. I won't say the formation was wrong, but I think in many ways it was more monastic type of formation that we went through, which holds you in good stead. I mean, to have certain routines and practices, I think, a program to your life rather than haphazard. And I think that's good. But yeah, I would say there was a definite change. And also, I think from the beginning of the seminary, certainly by the time we got to Manly, things were, much more involvement, let's say, with the community, and you're closer to what was happening there.
So on your ordination day, they were there.
My father died while I was in the seminary.
Right.
When I was at Manly. So he died, so he was not there, and yeah. But I had at my ordination a number of people that were in my youth group were there, and similarly when I was ordained the bishop here in the diocese, a number of them came to Toowoomba on that fairly foggy, wet day for my ordination 6 years ago.
Bishop Robert, your cross is a little bit different from what I've seen before. Tell us a little bit about it.
Bishop's Masserie, I've got a number of crosses. I have another one too, but this one I actually found in the safe here. It was actually one that, in the insignia on the back, it was given by Pope Paul VI. It's got his papal coat of arms on it. When he came to Australia in 1970, he gave it to one of these to each of the bishops in it who were there when he came in 1970. And Bishop Brennan was the bishop at the time, so Bishop Brennan received this cross, and it's one of the petrol crosses which is in the safe here. So I thought, not much use getting it in the safe there. It's good to bring it out and wear it, and I do wear this fairly frequently.
Was there a particular event or moment in your priesthood that really sticks with you?
Well, I think there's many moments, and I think there have been highlights that, like ordination to priesthood, is something that you were able to experience the joy of that with family and friends, and with the wider church. I think there are a lot of wonderful moments when you've had events with people and you realise they're doing the ministering to you rather than you doing the ministry to them. And I was thinking of that once, visiting a relation who was sick and dying, and I'm thinking, oh look, I'm the priest, I'm the one who should be really saying the right thing and that when I go visit it. But it became very obvious to me that when I went into that room with the family, that it was that person that was really giving the peace to me. And I think there needs to be that openness that we're receiving too. And I think it's a joint thing, and there are many occasions, and as I say, with the sorrows and joys of people, I mean, and no doubt there are tragedies, and you've been with people with families where there may be suicides or tragic deaths, with children especially. They're really very difficult times, and I think that's when your faith shows forth, and hopefully you are able to support other people. But also, the support and the encouragement words that I receive from people from time to time give you strength, I think, to again realize you're not there alone. I tell people we don't journey alone, and I think it's great when you sort of you pick it up and think, yes, it's we're in this together. We're journeying as a Christian family together, making mistakes, sure. And I'm sure I look back and think, I wouldn't have done it that way, or I wouldn't have done it this way. But I mean, I even look here at the diocese of, I came from a different diocese here. I knew some of the people here, and that great acceptance of people when I came here. I even support the Blues, not the Maroons, and of course that causes a bit of angst among some people. The clergy here have been very welcoming. I've endeavoured to get to know them through my clergy dinners that I have, and I enjoy cooking, and it's great to have them up there where I can get to know them and they get to know me a little bit better, so that it's not a hierarchical thing of, bishop and a priest, but it's really, two brothers together. We're journeying together. So they support me, and hopefully I'm supporting them too. So I couldn't do this on my own. Not just with the priests, with the lay people, with the people on my staff, with the schools, an conglomerate of all working together. And I think that the face of Christ there that they painted at the school's mass when I first came here showed how many people working together bring it together. And I think that's really the important thing that I see.
It's a very lovely, bright symbol of
it is,
the collaborative nature in the diocese.
I think so, yeah. So I would see that, yeah.
What message do you have for the people today who are watching us?
Well, I think we live in a world which is rapidly changing at many levels, rapidly changes politically within this country, but also within the church. Now, there's a lot of people that are gloom and doom, think that everything should be this way or that way, but we really need to be not gloom and doom people, but I am an optimist, and I think we have to really see the face of Christ in others. We also need to see that the Spirit of the Lord journeys with us. We're not journeying alone, that we are to be a faith-filled and a joy-filled people, that we need to be accepting of others, and most importantly, not everybody will really journey exactly the same way we do, but I think we have to also be open and accepting of people who may, during life's journey, choose a very different journey and a course of life than we do. But I think we have to accept the dignity of everybody, be accepting of those people. And I think it's wonderful that, especially in this place, but also wherever we are, I think we have to be open to other people. We have to really see that we can't be afraid to welcome people, and indeed not only receive the love of Christ, but actually to share that with others as we together continue this pilgrimage as we journey through life. I pray God's blessing upon all of you, and I ask you to pray for me too as I continue this journey as a Christian with you, as we all are children of God in this place at this time. God bless you.
Shalom World brings to you the Catholic faith in all its different dimensions. It can be a faith to inspire you in in your own living of your Catholic life in society. Shalom World offers you an opportunity of being enriched and strengthened in your family life. We live in a culture that needs to have a Catholic presence. We live in a culture that needs to be evangelized by the presence of Catholic teaching and the inspiration to live according to our Catholic way of life. I recommend to you to be involved in the work of Shalom World. May the Lord bless you and bless the work of Shalom World. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Shalom World, God's own channel.